Well, Ralph, I am so excited to be having this conversation with you today. I first met you back in '92 when I was an intern at Burson-Marsteller, New York. And aside from my senior year of college, right after that, I have worked with you pretty much continuously since that time at Burson, at CooperKatz, and now at GNS. And you are now officially retiring from the business, which is inconceivable to me. But
Me
it's
too.
fun to, yeah, it's fun to have a chance just to ask you some questions because there's so many aspects of your career that have been really amazing. And I love that we can share them with others. So first of all, thanks for everything that you've done for me in my career, Ralph. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So this is an incredible kind of industry to work in, which we've talked about innumerable times. But what first interested you in this whole crazy world of integrated communications?
Well, really, I can go back well before that to elementary school. I was an avid photographer. I was a filmmaker. What I would do with my friends on the weekend is we'd go into our parents' closets and get all kinds of costumes and do films. I was a member of the AV squad, and I would be the one who would wheel the 16 millimeter projector into a classroom to show the films. I probably saw every film made for elementary school students in the 1950s. I was very interested in the icons of creativity. So Disney interested me a lot. I still remember vividly listening in 1966 to Walt Disney's description of Epcot, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. It never quite became that, but I was fascinated by it. Coney Island, we'd go to Coney Island, Dreamland, Luna Park, Steeplechase. That was really a lot of creativity going on there. I was the one in high school who, when they gave you a choice of you can hand in a film or a paper, I would hand in film. I took the few production courses that were offered at my school. And I took these preference tests, which some others may have taken, where they were trying to figure out what was the right profession for you. It would give you 100 questions. Do you prefer this? Do you prefer that? In elementary school through high school, my answer always was advertising, which of course was the code used for advertising, PR, marketing, and all of those. I think that was set pretty early.
That's so fun. I remember taking one of those tests too. My dad brought me into New York City to take one, I think in high school. And I had a similar outcome as you, which is very funny because it was not on my radar. So again, when I met you, it was at Burson-Marsteller. And that's where I also met Andy Cooper, your longtime friend already, even by then, and partner. And you both started CooperKatz in around May of 1996. So how did you first meet Andy? And how did you guys, what really brought you to have such a strong bond?
So I met Andy when we were both at Syracuse Newhouse taking the master's course in television radio. And I really wanted to be with him because he was one of the ones that was clear was taking this very seriously and was very creative. But I was married, living in an apartment. He was in the dorms. And I kind of found out in discussion that what his meals were things called boiling bags. This was the days before microwave. So what he would do is he would get this bag that had food in it, and you would drop it in boiling water, and it would heat it up, and you would squeeze it out, and that was your meal. Well, we couldn't stand thinking that Andy was eating that all the time. So Ellen and I used to invite him over for dinners very often, and we got to be great friends. We kept that friendship going after we came out of school. He went to Chicago. I was in New York, but in Chicago, after a few years, he hooked up with Burson-Marsteller, where there was a very sophisticated creative group that was operating. And Andy got wind of the fact that Burson, which had its headquarters in Chicago, was going to move it to New York. And there were some creative people in New York, but not the kind of creative unit that was in Chicago. So he went to Harold Burson and Jim Dowling, the president, and he asked if he could move to New York, organize a creative group, and bring somebody over to do that with him. And that was me. They gave him permission. We came together in November of 1977, and that started an 18-year collaboration at Burson-Marsteller that led to CooperKatz in May, as you say, of 1996.
So Ralph, over the course of such an incredible career, obviously there's a lot of learnings you've gathered. What are some of the ones that you'd love to share with others as most important to you?
So a 48-year career is a long time, and to be enthusiastic and want to come into work every day, you need variety, and the variety of this business is a real pleasure. But the thing I always say is, if you can think it, you can do it. I don't think any of my friends can say that about their professions. But if we're going to do the best work for our client, we've got to come up with great ideas. Some of them are way out there. And if we can stand in front of a client and convince them to do it, that's a win. And that's allowed me to do all kinds of things, celebrity encounters, amazing experiential events, all kinds of things. So if you can think it, you can do it is a big one. And the fun and creativity of this business goes to the B2B work. And too many times I've heard people say, oh, well, this is serious business, people, we can't do that. And I'll just give you one example of where I don't think that's true, because everybody wants to have fun. We did, for the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, an online university when people didn't have a lot of websites for educational purposes. And at the press conference, Andy Cooper had written a fight song for this online university, and 17 of these state insurance commissioners stood up with pom-poms and sang the fight song at the press conference. So if that's not having fun, I don't know how to even say. People, surround yourself with smart people. That's the way to look good, and it's always been a big part of what I've done. But also caring and respect for everybody you work with in every aspect of your life. And that way you're surrounded by a support group no matter what you're doing. And of course, who doesn't need that? And also paying it forward by mentoring. Harold Burson was a mentor to me. I was very lucky when I came to Burson-Marsteller that because I was in the creative group, I worked with him on all kinds of presentations. He was a mentor for me all through my career. Andy and I used to talk to him once a year when we started the business, and he would help us and guide us. So I want to keep mentoring.
I remember at CooperKatz, you'd have lunch once a year with every staff member. We were obviously smaller, so it was easier, but the amount of time and attention, and also just me being by your side all those years, I could see all those people that you were still in touch with and be like, oh, that's somebody that I used to mentor from back in the 70s, or that's somebody from the 80s or the 90s. And I see that continue to this day. And I think that's a great lesson for all of us. So clearly in a 48-year career, I mean, these days, big change happens in a month or a week or a day. So to ask you a question like, gee, Ralph, what has changed? I mean, I guess I would say so much has changed. But what are the things for you that are most interesting in terms of how our industry or your observations of it have shifted across the arc of your career?
Well, the first one I want to talk about is diversity. And when I talk about and think about diversity, I'm not just talking about what's going on now, but I'm talking about going back when I started in this business, both advertising and PR. It was mainly male dominated. And I remember sitting in brainstorms at Burson-Marsteller, and we'd have a room full of men, but half the customers we were going to try to reach for our clients were women. And we didn't have the right points of view in the room. So if you take that as a framework and you look now and you say, look at the population of this country and how it's mixed, we're definitely doing and talking about diversity in terms of inclusion and equality, and that's very important. But it's important for the business that we start to make our thought rooms, our brainstorm rooms, look more like the population. So the whole focus on diversity and the importance of that, getting the right points of view into the room is a big one for me. And that includes backgrounds of people. When I started in the business, there were very few schools that were doing communications degrees. So mostly who we would be bringing in were people from journalism, people from the law profession, poli-sci majors, people who had done political campaigns. And my thought here is just, we shouldn't lose that. I think we get a lot of great candidates who have performed well coming from those schools, but I wouldn't want to be in an agency that didn't mix in anybody who had some of these varied backgrounds, because that's a form of diversity. Um, I think there's been, I mean, we all know a transformation from physical to digital, but I think a difference that that has caused is our ability to speak directly to our consumers or target audience. Um, Back when I started, that was what advertising was. You would pay your money and you would get to send a message directly to the consumer. And we in public relations were doing everything through, or not everything, but the majority of our work through another medium. We'd be going through the journalists. Yeah, there were the bylines, there were the experiential events, but it wasn't like it is now. We really have a chance to talk directly to consumers within our discipline, and that's changed the skill set that our population of professionals needs, because we've got to be a lot better with the content. And in doing some of the social media postings, we almost have to be advertising copywriters. So that is an interesting one. And then the final one, and this is big for GNS. You know, we say we inspire action. I don't think that inspire action would have been the Burson-Marsteller theme back when I was there. I feel that we looked at our industry as an industry that created awareness, that gave you a good reputation, but that didn't contribute to the bottom line directly, that no sales were expected out of the public relations work. But that has changed drastically with all the data we have, with our ability to reach consumers more often through social media. I think now we know we are as much a part of contributing to the bottom line for our customers and our clients as advertising.
So, I mean, the last question, I guess, is what's next? What are some of the things you're thinking about as you move into this next phase of life?
Yeah, well, I'm still contemplating that, but I have a few things that I'm thinking about. One is that I'd love to work with entrepreneurial startups, maybe not, you know, the first day they start up, but helping them think through their purpose, think through, you know, what's our elevator speech, what's our messaging to different companies, and I've made a connection. Somebody from Burson-Marsteller connected me with a group that works with uh, women's entrepreneurial companies. And it's just like Shark Tank. They present their ideas and people decide if they want to contribute. And I love to be an advisor to some of these companies. And I'm already getting calls from some friends who have entrepreneurial ventures who are saying, when you're open and free, I'd love to talk to you. So that's one kind of great thing. The other thing that has always interested me is theater as education. Um, I just feel that the whole process of theater and a diverse group coming together to do the different tasks that are necessary to put on a show is a big learning. And I think standing on a stage is a big confidence builder. And sometimes I couldn't help myself when I was presenting at, let's say, a new business pitch, and I was standing up and giving the information to the client and interacting with them. I was thankful in the back of my head for my involvement in theater early on, because that gave me the confidence at an early age to step up and do that. And then the one that we talked about before, I would love to continue the mentoring. I have been working with one woman who picked my name from the list at Syracuse when I said I would be a mentor, and she came out of school. And in the 20 years or so I've known her, she has created one of the most amazing women-run production companies that I think is probably around. And that's very satisfying. As we said before, I've kept in touch with pretty much every mentee that I've had over the years that was an official mentee. And I would love to keep doing that, stay in touch with people. So anybody out there that just wants to bounce some ideas off about the industry, about what they're doing, about their career path, I would welcome that.
Here in this strange time at the end of 2020, the fact that we're doing this remote, that I can't be by your side, can't give you a big hug, and we can't celebrate in the way we want to. It's so lovely and such an honor to have this conversation with you. Thanks for talking with me today, Ralph.
All right. Thank you. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.